Welcome to RLCS Overtime, ladies and gentlemen, your one-stop shop for all things Rocket League eSports and RLCS. I'm your host, Wavepunk. I got a findable carpet and a Quinn Lobdell, two of my great friends. We just get to sit here and just talk about Rocket League for money. How awesome is that? It's so cool.
Is it considered a one-stop shop if they have to come back like 26 times?
26 stop.
Yeah, because you don't go other places. Like,
Yep.
There's one-stop shops that you leave and you go home and then you come back to the one-stop shop.
It's how we do everything
But does that
here.
count though? It's like it's one stop in that one instance. But what if we're talking in the grand scheme of things? It's technically like a 30-stop shop.
I think it's a convenience store of Rocket League info, right? You don't have to go anywhere else. You don't have to go to Home Depot of Rocket League and Walmart. I guess Walmart's a convenience store. Walmart's a one-stop shop.
Yeah,
You go there multiple
especially if they
times.
have the pullback racers.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Get those pullback racers. Lots of fun stuff here. We're just going to talk about Rocket League stuff here for the first segment in the regional reevaluation. Okay, so we've had a whole other year of Rocket League, and we had always talked about how NA is trying to catch up to EU, right? And now we add OCE into the picture, and can they catch up to the big dogs in the West? And how do we feel now after watching Season 4 go down? How do we feel about the regions? How do they stack up against each other right now?
How do we feel, Quinn?
I feel that. I got you.
Yeah, I want everyone to hate you in chat first, and then I'll say my
No
opinion.
problem. I think that OCE and NA really made leaps and bounds. Kind of surprising, honestly, considering how hard everyone said that the difference was there, that EU was a much better region. I think at the very top of the game, EU is still a much stronger region. We saw Method and Gale Force kind of taking out any other team they played against. OCE, though, I think they've earned everybody's respect. Everyone needs to respect them, and NA as well.
I mean, the one Europe has always struck out to me is just raw consistency. Overall, the teams that are at the top, they stay at the top. You don't have fluctuating. I mean, we had some wavering things with Gale Force, but then the moment we doubted them, it didn't matter, right? They were right back at it and in full force, and they literally just didn't lose. They were there at the World Finals. And what we also haven't really talked about is that the last two Worlds of them have been away. They've had to travel good portions across the world, and they still always end up more teams in the top 4, and then double European finals.
Yeah,
and they're still performing all the way.
The last 3 finals here in the RLCS have been 2 European teams. We've only ever had 1 North American team in the top finals. Gale Force and Method have won, and they have been in the finals of the 2 biggest tournaments of the year here, and they continue to come out with these just dynamite performances as Gale Force takes the victory twice.
That flip cancel was so cool.
It was such a great,
so nifty.
Really, such a good play. Both these two teams, honestly, just to keep talking about it a little bit more, I think that Gale Force and Method are like on another level compared to any of the other Rocket League teams. When it comes to consistency, like you said, they just don't seem to have bad days, and when they do, it's not nearly as bad as the other teams that you'll see.
But when you
just go missing.
When you look at North America, though, Cloud9, everybody pretty much unanimously has said there's a good chance Cloud9 is going to win this year. It was the first time that anyone had since season, no, not even season 1. It was the first LAN that anyone predicted North American team would win.
True.
Now, where you saw them falter was just raw experience. I think that a lot got to them as far as pressure is concerned, knowing there was so much on the line. It's tough, man. It was really, really hard. And you just didn't see them play the normal game. Not as much passing as you had normally seen. So obviously, as you said, like North America thinks making leaps and bounds. But again, it's just how well can you perform when you need to? And can you do that often? Can you do a lot? And I've always been a big advocate for the OCE region as a whole, just to kind of talk on that as well.
Yeah. I think the OCE has been, they made probably the biggest improvement of any of the regions as far as especially when it regards to Chiefs, especially going up against NRG, taking out the North American dynasty, knocking them completely out of the tournament. Chiefs definitely showed that OCE has at least a champion. The question for me is the rest of the region, and does anyone else have anything close to what Chiefs has right now?
I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing, right, Quinn?
Right, yeah. Pale Horse, we saw some good things come out of them at the RLCS, but I felt like the pressure for them, it was just too much for them to really feel comfortable and play the type of gameplay that they normally play. I talked with the Chiefs actually before all the series went down, and they were telling me that they thought Pale Horse really had a chance to take out just about any European team there. They said that during scrims against Market, for instance, they were winning 7-2 in scrims, Pale Horse versus Market. So I think this stage kind of got them a little bit. We haven't really seen other OCE teams with as much practice as Chiefs. They're the first team to make it out here along with Jam Gaming. And they've made so many lands over in Australia that they've won. They have easily the most practice out of probably any Rocket League team across any region.
Yeah, and everything the OCE does are on LAN. Like they do a lot of tournaments and championships, and they're always on LAN. So they have a lot of that experience of playing live and playing with your teammates. I mean, a lot of times, LANs, especially the RLCS LAN, but now that we have DreamHacks and a lot more events that are going on, these people had never sat next to their teammates before. Like they'd never like even just been able to do a fist bump when they got a goal. So that's always a really big thing for these players of like, I've talked to you for months and now we finally meet. So that also, I think, adds like, it's just like one more layer of things. Even though it's super tiny, just that extra layer of like, I'm already stressed, I already want to play, I'm already getting used to you guys. Like so many things to stack on top of each other.
Yeah, and I think you look at Jam last year and Pale Horse this year, both losing 2 series and dropping out, and it's hard to like look at that and understand like what does that mean. But when you look at the Chiefs, formerly Alpha Sydney, they've both series they've lost 2. They've won 1 series. That's 1-1 match at some point during the World Championships. But last year was against Denial. This one against NRG, and their other 2 were G2 and Cloud9. Significantly tighter competition for them to have to deal with here, and the worst they did was go 4 games against Cloud9, and 2 of those were in overtime. So crazy series there from OCE. And talking about OCE, one of the players everyone likes to talk about, Torsas, one of the best, probably, I think he's easy to say right now, he's the best KBM player in the pro scene. And that brings up the question people are always talking to us about, and we have extra time to talk about it, so let's talk about it now. KBM versus controller. Torsas making the name and making the case that you don't have to play with a controller to be good at Rocket League.
Right, Torsas is, I mean, he said it himself. He hates being known as the keyboard mouse player. He thinks that there's no difference fundamentally between controller and keyboard mouse at the very highest level. And I don't know if I would come. I think I would agree with you, or agree with Torsas on the fact that any player at the highest level of competition, if they have the same amount of practice on keyboard and mouse versus controller, I think that they can accomplish the same things. I think it's the journey to the top is where you're going to have a lot of struggle. We talk about the big differences, really. Sounds has done a great job kind of bringing, the controller experience a lot closer to keyboard and mouse with settings and options. But really, the main thing is the thumbstick.
Yeah.
Right? The thumbstick, just being able to have more nuanced controls, finer, directional inputs. It's not always as consistent, which is where I think keyboard mouse has a advantage.
You said nuance. Like the controller, the stick is much more nuanced. You could have much more gradual degrees of input, but that also introduces significantly more room for error. It's more. It's less consistent. It's less. The way that their kickoffs. Generally, kickoffs are completely. Which kickoffs are difficult for you is completely different on KBM versus controller, just because of the things you have to do. And the interesting thing for me, anytime I try to play on keyboard, the thing that throws me off is that the forward and backwards are gas and brake, right? And whenever you jump, then they also become input in your direction. So you have to learn to jump to let off the gas, which is a thing in Rocket League on a controller. You can sit there and just hold down gas the whole time,
Well, I mean, I think it's really interesting because when you talk about the nuance, there's like the pros and cons, right? It's like, well, I can move a lot slater with my stick, but if I need to get quicker, there's going to be like a little bit of, I have to flick. Whereas in keyboard, if I need to turn as fast as possible, I am now turning as fast as possible. Same with air rotations, right?
It's exactly the case, and that's why kickoffs, I think, on keyboard and mouse are a lot easier when you're learning, because a lot of times what happens with a kickoff is that you actually have to orient your car in relationship to the ball without actually having it on ball cam necessarily, or you might flip halfway through your kickoff. And that becomes a lot easier to replicate on keyboard and mouse as opposed to controller.
Essentially, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No,
if you're good, you're going to be good.
It's the same thing as cars, which we always talked about. Which car should I use? People are always asking. It's like the one you like the most, and just stick to it. Because they're all mostly the same, and it's just whatever you're the most comfortable with is the thing that you will be the best at. So things can just, it's use whatever you want to use, folks.
But if you see Torsas, make sure you remind him that he's the best keyboard.
Are you the KBM guy?
Yeah. Ask him if he's the KBM guy. And then ask him if he can sign your keyboard.
I'm sorry, Torsas. I tried.
For sure. No, we've talked here on Overtime a few times about the rookies. We had many rookies here in Season 4, and we want to kind of recap where those players are at. And the interesting thing is we have players like Tylacto, players like Flame, Seabass, Aleutian, Tynot Tyler, who all had they showed sparks, showed signs of life at certain points during league play, but ended up having lackluster seasons as they ended down towards the bottom. But then your players of Gimmick, your players of Bluey, and there's one more. I'm forgetting them right now. Squishy Muffins. That's the other one. Yes, Squishy Muffins. These guys making it all the way to land and having dynamite performances.
You can honestly play that off as sarcastic, since Squishy's the easiest one to remember.
Yeah.
I almost forgot this guy. What's his name?
I have all the people to forget.
Yeah,
right?
I almost forgot Cookster's name. I don't understand.
Dude, I'm just impressed I can remember 10 names off the top of my head.
Yeah, that was actually good. Yeah. You got the first 6. I'm like, he's on a roll. I mean, it's huge. It was just to make it into RLCS. I think was the biggest step for those players, most of them, right? Obviously, some shined and made it to the top, and others really struggled and made it, kind of sat there at the bottom, I should say, which sounds a little meh.
Yeah, it was the bottom of the top 8. You know?
Yeah, you're still. I mean, they still beat out people that everyone thought deserved to be there. So they still knocked down players that everyone could have sworn were going to be there. But when you just if you talk about the 2 biggest ones, I think Gimmick and Squishy on the North American region made such a huge impact as a pair. The things they were able to pull off, the things they were able to showcase, it was just such a treat to catch their games. And whenever we see new people, we're both excited and scared. Are they going to cave under pressure, or will they show it? And every time I got Cloud9 and I got the cast, I'm like, this is going to be great.
It was crazy to me that, like, you know, Cloud9 is a team that came in very, very hot. Oftentimes, teams that we have a lot of expectation around, you just look at Fibian, the way that they crumbled under the pressure over and over again. This is the team that did not do that. They broke the mold, and just no matter what pressure you put on them, they finished in amazing fashion. The worst they've finished on a LAN here is 3rd.
Yeah, really the big difference for me, for Cloud9 and all the other, you know, rosters that have rookies, I felt that Squishy and Torment have enough experience competing that they really could put Gimmick in situations where he shined, and he didn't have to do things that he was super uncomfortable doing. I mean, Squishy and Torment, huge carries, right? Some of the biggest across the entire league. You know, it really lets Gimmick have a lot more, you know, he's way more comfortable. Whereas we look at, you know, rookies on other teams where it's maybe all 3 players are rookies, right? It's like you suddenly have a lot more pressure. You don't have teammates who can calm you down, who can't control the game as well as Squishy and Torment. I felt like Gimmick really kind of just had, you know, the best possible team that you could imagine to have a rookie season.
I mean, I think that confirms a lot of our theories of, like, what happens when you make an all-star team and players that can thrive when, I think, traditionally, Gimmick was not a player that stood out. Like, prior to what he's done this season, there were a lot of people that questioned, you know, the choice of having Gimmick and, you know, why is he on their team? And when I got to talk to the Cloud9 players a bit, they had that thought process, and they told me, like, you know, everyone was wondering, like, why Gimmick? But we saw it. Like, we knew what he could do. But I think, as you said, it's also a lot to do with his playstyle works so well with the 2 that he's with Squishy and Torment. It lets Gimmick play what he's the most comfortable with, and he was able to just rise and really show that he's a good player.
Do you think that maybe in the situation of Bluey, the other player, the other rookie that had a fantastic season, is it the same sort of story here where he's fitting in well with his teammate, or is it just how much of a clutch player he could be? I feel like most of the plays we saw and we knew Bluey for during the season were these sorts of solo plays that we were able to see where he was just able to put the team on his back and make it happen.
Well, definitely opposite of Cloud9, he's a very strong personality. Cloud9, you'd watch them make the greatest goal of their lives, and
robots.
I have never seen such stone-faced killers in all of my life. It was almost sad. Like, I felt bad. I'm like, at least smirk or something. But Bluey is very, I mean, just with their victory when they hit the ground because they were all so excited, that I think just in general plays such a big difference. But I don't know, I think it wasn't as obvious with the duo. Like, Bluey definitely shined more individually, but really having Chaussette Fair, and here it is. It was just so, it's such a heartwarming moment to just see people that happy.
They are the direct opposite of Cloud9 in that regard.
They
as far
really
as how
are.
much emotion they show, and it's one of the things I love about them.
But, I mean, really just to kind of sum it all up, I think that, like, the experience coming from Torment and Squishy, having already been through a season where they already lost. They were like on Iris, where they've seen the worst kind of thing happen. They're just like, whatever, Gimmick, we'll do, you know, all the crazy stuff, right? Just you focus on your game, which I think is shooting for Gimmick at least, right? Like, that's all he had to focus on was just making sure he hit shots. And, like, when you see, like, when a player gets put in their element, you see what can happen. Like, MVP, right?
Yeah.
So that does it for the rookie roundup there. Now, moving over, before the LAN, we did predictions on how we thought things were going to go. And we said we'd come back and touch on them again, so now it's time to eat our lumps for some of us and for some of us to celebrate because, you know, predictions are fun, and it's always fun to, like, get on people for when they messed up. So we made a prediction of the Dark Horse team, the team that we thought was that everyone wasn't expecting to do well, but that we thought were going to do well. Here's our Dark Horse predictions. We had Karma here when we did this, but she's not here now, so we'll just review the ones we had. And it's funny, I was like, yeah, NRG's a Dark Horse because, you know, they're not first for the first time. Oh, it's so tight, and, like, that's how everything's going to be. They're going to do well, though. 2 of my predictions were based off the same result, and that was that NRG was going to beat Method in the upper bracket. That didn't happen. That threw a lot of things off here. NRG was not the dark horse of the tournament.
I had it on Chiefs, and I think I hit the money right there.
Yep.
And guess who they knocked out?
Yeah, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
What have I done?
You know, if anybody got like just unbelievably lucky on their predictions, it was you. There was
it's all luck.
nobody putting money
it's all
on
luck.
Chiefs. And don't like play me like you went and watched a bunch of Chiefs film.
Go
and, like,
watch it
knew they
again.
were
I
gonna be
was
crazy.
confident in my prediction. This wasn't like I'm just going to do this because I'm going to look like a genius. I thought OC was going to bring it, and I was pretty right.
Let's see if he keeps being right. Okay,
yeah.
Like, is it luck or is he correct? Okay, so we did dark horse right. The next thing we predicted was the upset, the team that people thought was going to do well, but it was actually not. The opposite, basically. And so obviously, for me, my upset pick was Method because they were supposed to lose to NRG in the top and then tilt out of the tournament. Didn't happen again. And yeah, Carpet going there with Mocket, which
Again.
Yeah, I feel
also
it was,
pretty right. I mean,
close.
Mocket has had this infamous thing of like being there, and like for some reason they're not the top of talks, but they still just like beat people.
They're
when
always
they need
beating
to.
people.
But I think that of all the seasons to just kind of be there, this was going to be the most difficult one because everybody had really stepped up their game. And while I think Mocket's always done a fantastic job, I think it was just a little too much just talent everywhere for them to just play a very safe game, which is what they've always done, a little more defensive, and I figured they were going to struggle.
Quinn, like, the G2 fanboys have to be ripping you up right now. Like,
A little bit.
I mean,
you know,
I was so close to just like being right on the money for both my picks. I mean, if Chiefs just murdered G2, I would have been right.
This is Caster 101,
So
right? Like,
close.
don't ever pick G2
Almost
to fail
there.
because then Chad will just destroy you. Even if you're right, they'll destroy you. You know?
I tried. I really did. It's not that I don't want them to do well. It's just that they never do.
Yeah.
To be fair, I almost
did pretty well here.
To be fair, I almost picked G2, so I'm with you there.
Well, they had a great performance there at LAN. Now, last one, the only one anyone really cares about. Who did we think was going to win? Fun fact, the only caster across anywhere who actually got it right was Gibbs. So none of us actually got it correct, but Carpet was the closest. And actually, Quinn was right behind him with the third place pick. And then mine was for the fourth, fifth place pick. Yeah, so it was good. So we were all pretty close.
Your predictions just got absolutely.
They were bad.
They got messed up pretty bad.
They were real bad.
They got messed up pretty bad.
I still love
I
my
didn't even
PSG
blame you.
boys.
This is just like could not have gotten worse with luck. But really, I thought Cloud9 actually was going to do this. Method or Cloud9, I didn't think were wrong answers, honestly, and Gale Force. It's the first term. I think we could say there's no wrong answers for, honestly, any of our three predictions there at the end.
I mean, they're wrong.
They were all objectively wrong.
No
but
wrong. Okay.
I understand what you're saying.
You know what I meant.
They all had justifications. Yes.
Moving over to things that don't involve us predicting the future, the DFH Community Award, an award awarded to the single player with the most positive impact on the community, embodies the community, $500 award for Kronovi. We are giving it to Kronovi here, who's always so collected, so well presented, no matter if you're interviewing him after a brutal loss or if he's coming off of a win, he's always very well informed, well presented. Has great streams too. You go check out his streams.
I mean, whether he's at the top and he's winning or whether he's kind of not even there, he still has such a positive presence, always has really good insight into the league as a pro player as well. And he's just an incredible person to be around. I've gotten to spend a lot of time with him, and he's just a really nice guy.
Yeah, you guys said it better than I could have. Really just awesome guy, and no matter whether he's winning or losing, always just wants to support Rocket League. So
yeah, he's been the OG
Congrats.
from the beginning. Since the sentences are hard sometimes. Anyways, Kronovi, congratulations on your award. That does it here for the quick chat here on RLCS Overtime. When we come back, we're gonna sit down with Tylacto from Team Secret, get his thoughts on the season and his expectations for Season 5. That and more when we come back to Overtime.